the center of my dress and exploded. Cold water splashed down the front of me. Sharp, humiliating, deliberate. The ballroom fell dead silent. My brother, Brandon, lowered his arm, the empty glass still in his hand. His smirk widened as he leaned into the mic on the podium and said, "You don't belong here. You never did." Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos? And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. I stood still. The water soaked through my clothes, but I didn't flinch. I didn't wipe it away. My fingers curled slightly, but my eyes locked on him. On that smug, cocky face he'd worn since childhood. The crowd didn't know what to do. Some people gasped. Others whispered. A few, those who always sided with him, laughed awkwardly, like this was some kind of show. And my father, the guest of honor? He didn't move.
He didn't speak. He didn't even look at me.
Just kept cutting into his food like none of this was happening. Then, from behind me, a chair scraped back slowly. Mason stood. He didn't rush. He didn't raise his voice. He adjusted the sleeves of his blazer, rolled back his shoulders, and walked toward the podium, stopping just beside me. He glanced at Brandon, eyes calm but ice cold. "Funny," Mason said, his voice carrying easily across the room. "She owns this venue." A few people stiffened in their chairs. Heads turned. Brandon's face twitched. But Mason wasn't done. "And half of your business." Silence. Genuine, stunned silence. Brandon blinked. "What the hell are you talking about?" Mason took another step forward, straightening his posture like he was in front of a judge. "Check your equity agreements. Or, did you think your little funding deal last year came from the sky?" That's when I spoke. My voice was calm.
Clear.
Years of swallowing words had taught me how to speak only when it mattered. While you were flying to Vegas and buying watches, Mason and I were buying control. Brandon's fiancée shot up from her chair. "What do you mean, control?" "Sterling and Cole isn't his," Mason replied. "Not anymore. The majority stake belongs to her. Has for 5 months. Gasps echoed from both sides of the ballroom. Brandon laughed, but it came out shaky. "This is a joke." "No," I said. "The joke was watching you walk around like a king, while you didn't even notice the crown was gone." My assistant walked up from the side entrance and handed Mason a small folder. He opened it slowly and laid it on the main table. Ownership breakdown.
Signatures.
Transaction history. Brandon stared. And then, for the first time in my life, I watched fear flicker across his face. Outside, under the covered walkway, I stood near a heater. Someone from the venue had handed me a jacket. My dress was still damp, but I didn't care. Mason stood beside me, hands in his pockets. "You good?" I nodded, though my jaw was tight. He did that in front of everyone.
"Yeah," he said.
"But you finished it in front of everyone, too." I looked back at the ballroom windows, where Brandon's figure now slumped into a chair. My father still hadn't moved. That part hurt more than I wanted to admit. But tonight wasn't about making them proud anymore. It was about never needing their permission again. Brandon slammed his fist on the table hard enough to rattle the silverware. "You planned this," he shouted, voice echoing through the ballroom like a fire alarm. "This was supposed to be Dad's night. You hijacked it." "No," I replied, voice calm but cold. "You hijacked it the second you threw water on me like a toddler in a tantrum." I just reclaimed the moment. The guests sat frozen, some turning their eyes away, others fully invested like it was a courtroom drama. The servers had stopped moving. Even the pianist had gone silent. "I've been running this company for 9 years, Brandon snapped, stepping around the podium. "I've carried it, built it. You mismanaged funds, lost 2 major clients, ignored legal risk, slept through board calls," I said flatly. "That's what you've built. An ego house on sinking sand." He opened his mouth, but Mason stepped in before he could respond. "Your father may have handed you the keys," Mason said, "but she bought the building." Brandon's fiancée, Lauren, suddenly walked across the floor toward me, eyes wide with shock. Is this real? You actually own part of his business. I own the controlling share, I replied. Brandon still has a seat, but he answers to me now. She turned slowly toward him. You told me she was just a lawyer who handled paperwork, that she was cut out of everything. Brandon flushed.
She was.
I didn't think. No, you didn't think. I cut in. You were too busy trying to impress everyone with your leased Bentley and fake charm. Lauren's expression crumbled. Without another word, she turned and left the ballroom, heels clacking across the marble floor. Brandon took a shaky breath, but I could see it. He was unraveling.
Publicly.
Visibly. In front of the same people who used to laugh at his jokes and line up to shake his hand. He looked at my father. Dad? Say something. The entire room held still. My father stood, slowly. He looked at me, not angry, not proud. Just tired. Like he was watching a storm roll through a city he built but couldn't protect anymore. You could have handled this privately, he said to me. My chest tightened. He humiliated me publicly. He's your brother. He's your son, I said, my voice suddenly sharper. But you've spent your whole life making me feel like I had to earn my place at the table. He didn't deny it. He just sighed and said, You always took things too personally. A quiet gasp rippled from someone near the stage. Mason stepped forward then. No, he said firmly. She took things seriously, while you looked the other way. Brandon scoffed.
Wow.
So this is it? You're siding with her because she married rich? No, Mason said. I married power. I married integrity. You underestimated both. Brandon's jaw tensed, and I saw his hands clench at his sides. He wasn't just embarrassed now, he was furious. And I knew what came next. He would retaliate. Not in public, but soon. Privately. Behind the scenes. That was always his way. But what he didn't know.
So was I.
Back at home later that night, Mason poured us both tea in the kitchen. The house was silent. My heels were off. My dress was draped on a drying rack. You think he's going to come after you? He asked. He'll try, I said, pulling my damp hair into a loose knot. But I've already sent letters to the board. All decisions now require dual signatures, mine and the CFO. What about your father? He's made it clear where he stands. And it's not beside me. Mason came around the counter and placed the mug in front of me. You were brilliant tonight. Ruthless. Strategic. Unshakable. I stared at the steam rising from the mug. Then why do I still feel like a little girl waiting for her dad to look at her and say, You did good? Mason didn't answer right away. He just sat beside me, took my hand, and said, Because you're human. But you don't need his validation anymore. You're not his shadow. You're a storm. I closed my eyes. Let his words settle. Because deep down I knew he was right. But that didn't mean the war was over.
No.
It was just getting started. The first blow came at 9:13 a.m. the next morning. I was sipping my coffee in the sunroom, Mason on a call in the other room, when I got the text from my assistant. FYI, Brandon just pulled all login access from your Sterling dashboard. CFO 2. IT says he gave direct instructions. My fingers tightened around the mug. He didn't waste a minute. I opened my laptop. Locked out. Mason walked in mid-sip and stopped when he saw my screen. I didn't need to say anything. Brandon, he asked. I nodded. I warned you. He's not going to take this like a grown-up. No, I muttered, already typing an email. He's going to self-destruct. But not before trying to take everyone down with him. I pulled out my phone and called the one person Brandon hadn't alienated yet. Dan, I said as soon as the CFO picked up. Brandon pulled our access. Get the board on a call. Now. By 11 a.m., I was seated at a conference table in a private co-working suite Mason's firm leased for moments exactly like this. On screen were 5 faces, 3 board members, 1 compliance officer, and Dan, the CFO. This is a clear breach of policy, Dan said. Under the operating agreement, Emily and I share full financial access. Revoking that violates Section 4.6. One of the board members, Greg, rubbed his forehead. I don't understand what he's thinking. This could cause panic internally. He's thinking like a child who's losing control, I said bluntly. And it won't stop here. The compliance officer, Rachel, leaned forward. What do you propose? We file an emergency injunction, I replied. I've already spoken with counsel. If we move today, we can get a restraining order that blocks Brandon from any unilateral action until a formal review. Greg sighed. Emily, you know I support you, but this is messy. Your father just retired. Do you really want to drag your brother into court? My jaw tensed. He dragged me into this the moment he dumped water on me in front of hundreds of people. The moment he tried to lock me out of a company I legally control. This isn't personal. It's protective. For the company. Silence. Then Dan spoke again. I'll sign. And I'll testify if needed. One by one, the others nodded. Brandon's war had begun. But he hadn't realized I came armed. 3 days later, I was called into a meeting with Brandon's attorney. I expected arrogance. What I got was desperation. He wants to mediate, the attorney said, avoiding eye contact. Privately. No court. He'll reinstate access if you drop the motion. No, I said instantly. The lawyer shifted. He's worried about public fallout. He should have worried before he spilled water on his co-owner in a room full of investors. He cleared his throat. And your father? Is not my concern anymore, I snapped. And neither is protecting Brandon's image. He's reckless, entitled, and not fit to run anything. The attorney tried again. If this goes public, it will go public, I said. Because the company deserves transparency. The board deserves protection. And I leaned forward. Deserve justice. He left without a handshake. That night, as I reviewed legal drafts in my home office, Mason walked in with 2 envelopes. One from our firm's attorney. The other, hand-delivered. No return address. I opened the first. Legal confirmation. Brandon's access had been frozen. Court approval granted. My control was now formal. Then I opened the second. Photos. Grainy, late-night surveillance shots. Brandon. In the Sterling server room. Accessing files manually with someone from the IT team. Mason's voice was low. He's trying to move assets. Reroute internal funds. Possibly delete logs. I didn't blink. Then we stop him. He leaned in. You want to go nuclear? I looked down at the final photo Brandon standing in my office caught on hidden security. No, I said softly. I want to go surgical. I didn't sleep the night we got the surveillance photos. Instead, I sat in the dark with Mason, going over every move we'd made and every step Brandon might take next. He's panicking, Mason said, trying to erase proof of internal mismanagement before it reaches the board. If we let him keep pushing, he'll bury everything. I looked at the final folder in front of me, years' worth of internal emails, receipts, and quiet settlements Brandon had authorized behind closed doors. Money he rerouted to fake vendors. Bonuses he issued to phantom staff. A luxury condo in Chicago bought under a shell LLC with Sterling and Cole funds. We weren't just dealing with ego anymore. We were dealing with fraud. Let's go public, I said. Mason tilted his head. Press.
No.
Internal first, I replied. We start with the board. Then department heads. Let them see the truth before Brandon tries to spin it. The next morning, I walked into the downtown Sterling building for the first time in weeks. All eyes turned. Some whispered. Others froze mid-step. I walked straight to the executive floor. My security badge, reactivated under court order, worked instantly. And Brandon
Was in my office.
Feet on the desk. Cup of coffee in hand. He looked up as I entered. So, this is how it's going to be now. You roll in with your parade and pretend you built all this. I didn't blink. Get out of my chair. He laughed once. You're not that powerful, Emily. No, I said. But the truth is. I dropped a folder on the desk. He opened it and the color drained from his face. Emails. Signatures. Wire transfers. All tied to his login credentials. You have no idea what you've just started, he hissed. I leaned in. Actually, I do. And it ends today. Behind me, the CFO, compliance officer, and 3 board members walked in. The legal rep followed with a digital copy of the internal fraud report. Brandon jumped to his feet. This is a setup. It's your signature, the compliance officer said flatly. And it's your name on the offshore accounts. I did nothing illegal. You used company money to buy a condo, I said. Then claimed it as a travel expense. You authorized payments to non-existent firms. That's embezzlement.
He pointed at me.
She's lying. Greg from the board shook his head. We've reviewed the evidence. Brandon turned to my father, who had just entered through the side door. Dad, you can fix this. Tell them this isn't what it looks like. My father didn't answer. Dad, say something, but he just looked at me. For the first time, really looked at me. And then said the one thing I never expected to hear from his mouth. She warned you. Brandon's face collapsed. What?
She warned you, he repeated.
And you mocked her. You made her the enemy when she was the only one still protecting this company. I couldn't breathe. My father turned to the board. If it comes to a vote, I support full removal. Brandon stared at him like he'd been stabbed. You're siding with her?
She earned it, my father said.
Every single part of it. Brandon's shoulders dropped. He looked smaller suddenly, like a kid who finally realized the game was over. He turned to me one last time, but I had nothing left to say. The board escorted him out. Later that day, I sat in my office now alone. The windows overlooked the city. The sun hit the glass just right. Mason entered quietly. It's done, he said. Legal served him. His access is gone. Permanently. I nodded. What about the media? They're waiting. I stood, straightened my jacket, and walked to the window. Let them wait, I whispered. I've got one more thing to finish first. The press conference was scheduled for 3 p.m. By 2:40, the building's downstairs lobby was full. Board members, department heads, media, even a few former employees who'd come just to see how it would all end. I stood behind the curtain, glancing once at Mason. You're sure about this? He asked. Yes, I said. It's not just about Brandon anymore. It's about cleaning up the mess, so this company finally reflects the people who actually built it. He nodded once. Then give them the truth. When I stepped out, the cameras clicked immediately. I didn't smile. I didn't pose. I walked straight to the podium, placed my notes down, and spoke. Over the last several months, serious concerns were raised about financial decisions made within Sterling and Coal Logistics. Those concerns were confirmed, investigated, and today resolved. A hush fell over the room. As of this morning, Brandon Cole has been permanently removed from all executive roles. The board unanimously voted for this decision. Evidence of misconduct will be handled through the appropriate legal channels. I paused, scanning the faces. Then continued. But this isn't just about one person's downfall. It's about what happens when people assume legacy means immunity. When power is inherited, not earned. That ends today. Flashbulbs popped. I've spent most of my adult life in the background, drafting contracts, fixing problems, watching others take credit. But I stayed quiet until silence became betrayal. My voice tightened. No more silence. From the back, I caught a glimpse of my father, standing near the exit, hands folded, no expression on his face. But he didn't leave. He listened. Later, in the elevator, I finally exhaled. Mason stepped in beside me. It's over, he said softly. No, I replied. It's beginning. A week later, the company announced a major restructuring, more transparency, new leadership roles, and bonuses for the teams Brandon had neglected. Lauren officially returned her engagement ring. Brandon's name was removed from the office wall. And my father? He called me just once. I didn't raise you to be ruthless, he said. No, I told him. You raised me to survive people who are.
He didn't respond.
But he didn't hang up either.
And that was enough. For now.
That night, I sat in my office as the sun dipped behind the skyline. I wasn't waiting for anyone's approval anymore. I had built something. Defend